Hey listeners, it's Paul Andriola here. Why not join our community at Small Cap Discoveries, where we offer our members direct access to some of the best microcap investment opportunities available. Our members are getting access to premium microcap financings, research reports, and direct access to management. Sign up today at www.smallcapdiscoveries.com.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Small Cap Discoveries conference call. Today on our call, we have President and COO Neil Owens and Chairman and CEO Dr. Albert Friesen from Medicure, Inc. Medicure trades on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol MPH and on the OTC under MCUJF. The company is currently trading at $1.05 with roughly 10 million shares outstanding, or about an $11 million market cap. I'd now like to hand it over to Paul Andriola.
Hey, thank you so much, Trevor. Great to have Dr. Friesen back. We had you in well over half a year ago, maybe closer to a year ago. So glad to have you back. Neil Owen is joining us for the first time, so welcome. Welcome to Small Cap Discoveries. Before we get into any updates or anything, we'd love to remind everybody what Medicure is all about. And Dr. Friesen or Neil, I'll leave it up to you to decide who can do that for us.
Okay, so thank you very much, Paul and Trevor. I appreciate the chance, and thank you for all of you that are on the call. I'm not sure if I'm correct to assume that you were all on the previous call. If not, I'll maybe do a bit of an intro or background if you haven't got the background. But my plan today was, since it's an update, was to sort of remind and focus on the three areas that of Medicure's business. I started Medicure just about 25 years ago. Originally, we were developing a drug called MC1, which you can see is in the third category. It went through a number of preclinical, then clinical phase trials, and in the final trial for a particular indication for cardiovascular ischemic reperfusion, it didn't meet its endpoints, and therefore we switched to the second part of our business, which was sales and marketing of cardiovascular drugs, which is at first. So in 2008, we made the switch to focus on sales and marketing, although we never forgot about Medicure's MC1 history. So the update on sales and marketing of cardiovascular drugs, we acquired Aggrastat from a Merck product. And maybe I will go back and show you a slide here of the sales from 2008 to the present, where we're at the red line is the Aggrastat percentage of the business in the US of the three drugs in this class. Integralin had the market share, the yellow. There was another product, the first product out, ReoPro, which had a small percentage at a very high price. And our team from 2008, by and large, 2010, 11, 12, moved from 2% to 65%, and took the market share and became pretty profitable. And more recently, we've acquired another cardiovascular drug called Zypitamag. It's a statin. And we believe it's starting to get some traction now. And just like an Aggrastat, after a few quarters, we're starting to see some momentum. And small gains yet, but you can see the arrow where we think it's at. So we got Aggrastat, which has been sort of leveled off, with sales of around 10 million, and Zypitamag and sales of around 1, or maybe this year 2 or 3 million, in that range. And we are looking at other additional products because Aggrastat does go generic at the end of this year, and our business is broadened to beyond the Aggrastat and Zypitamag. Because of the strong position of Aggrastat in the market, we're in 1,100 hospitals in the US and have a very good relationship with the interventionalists. We think we'll retain a reasonable amount of the profit of the market share. But our growth is we're adding additional cardiovascular drug, which is a generic that comes on 23, and the growth of Zypitamag and Marley drug, and I'll explain a bit about Marley drug. We acquired Zypitamag, which is a product that is sold to primary care physicians, not mainly to hospitals like Aggrastat. So we've had to make a pivot on how we market. There was a challenge in getting insurance. It's a seventh statin. And we came up with the idea of selling more directly through the pharmacies, and had planned to set up our own pharmacies, or are exploring that in the US. And we came across a company called Marley Pharmacy in North Carolina, which had more than 15 years experience. We're licensed to sell pharmaceuticals in all 50 states, and you need to be licensed in each state, which is a great undertaking when you start from zero. You got to take a test for each state separately. And so we acquired all 50 licenses in one acquisition, and they had sales of around 6 or 7 million, a little bit of EBITDA, not a lot, but some. So our second focus is on leveraging this Marley drug infrastructure or pharmacy which has access to all 50 states and sells. It's a mail order. We deliver to the home, and are very good cost of acquiring. So we have over 100 different generic pharmaceuticals and other pharmaceuticals that are sold and delivered. And we just recently made 2 announcements, which is, I think, one of the reasons for the update. One is we launched an e-commerce site, so we can now, sort of like an Amazon, sell these pharmaceuticals with home delivery to all 50 states. And we're starting the marketing. We've launched a bit of marketing, test marketing in some targeted states, Texas, Carolina, Neil knows, I think I was at Iowa and Ohio. And so we're exploring with low costs to see how effective our marketing is. And these are TV ads. Also recently, we've now partnered to get even larger exposure of this e-commerce pharmacy business with a company called RX Spark. They provide discounts. You've probably heard of GoodRx, a huge company. Well, RX Spark goal is to become the next GoodRx. So they have access to 1 million or more contacts, and we are their exclusive mail order pharmacy. So if somebody looks up RX Spark and they want to get home delivery, Marley Drug, our business, provides the drugs. And so this is a way of leveraging this pharmacy to a broader market quicker than going through the long process of marketing. The third one is, since we've recently gone back to look at the potential for this drug MC1. As I said, it failed in the cardiovascular ischemic trial, but our team discovered a unique application, which called PNPO deficient patients. There's a genetic variant where a child or a person or a baby is not able to make paradoxal 5-phosphate, which is MC1. And without providing the paradoxal 5-phosphate, they have epileptic seizures, and many of them die very quickly. This variant was only discovered in 2005, and only really became aware of it after our trial failed. And so we've recently explored this application, and this has taken a bit of time. When we first explored it, the literature suggested there are only 20 patients in the world. So the question is, how do we get an approval? How do we do a trial with those few patients? Well, we've got we went through the process of getting an orphan drug status, obviously a small market, which gives us priority. Secondly, there's something called a pediatric voucher for rare diseases. And these vouchers expedite FDA approval of drugs. And the value in them is these vouchers are purchased by big pharma to accelerate the approvals of their blockbuster drugs. And sales of these vouchers, which MC1 is qualified for now, have been in the $100 million to $200 million. And so the reason for us pursuing this small market of 20, 30, we now think there's probably dozens of these patients. We've been exploring accessing these patients for our trial. And it's such a small market, but the real winner for Medicure will be completing the trial, getting approval, and upon approval by the FDA, we would get a voucher from the FDA, which would put on the market to sell. So this trial is about to get going in this year, and it's 10 patients. And we've organized several sites throughout the world in Canada, US, Australia, to enroll these patients. So that's an exciting opportunity in the next few years. Secondly, MC1 is also, we discovered, has a potential for treating a not so rare disease, but reasonably small disease called tardive dyskinesia. It's a sort of emotion, Parkinson's kind of reaction for those for patients that have been treated on antipsychotics for a long period of time. So it's involuntary movements, muscle movements, twitching, mouth, even arms, limbs. And we did a small trial, a phase 2 trial some years ago, and showed that there was potential, and that's another application. And this again would be this, unlike the other one, would be a very large market. And there's an existing drug on the market which has relatively high side effects, but sells for close to $1 billion. MC1 is, we showed, to be very safe. So that gives you a summary of the three focuses. We're continuing with the cardiovascular. We think the e-commerce pharmacy is a huge opportunity. And of course, we have the opportunity of refocusing on the MC1 development for both the voucher and TD. I don't know, Dr. Neil, would you like to add any more? Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks everyone for listening. Just add very briefly, as a manufacturer and doing development, it was an interesting experience going through Zypitamag, trying to market to consumers and running into the PBMs and insurers who basically block access to medications. And I think a lot of medications kind of suffer that fate of not getting insurance coverage or being basically very low on the formulary in terms of coverage. And so basically, I think we had this idea when we acquired Zypitamag, but it was a very interesting process to bypass the current system and market directly to consumers through that direct-to-consumer kind of pharmacy pathway. So we think that many other drugs kind of suffer that fate. And we're kind of excited to see the reaction because it's been very positive so far to buying Zypitamag, but it also offers up all kinds of medications through the pathway.
So welcome any questions.
Well, when Neil, sort of a question on that, the thing that's sort of strikes me right away is like traditionally, I mean, when I go to a doctor, it's a doctor that prescribes or tells me what medication I should go and take. How is this different? Like you're marketing to consumers. Is it a consumer that makes that decision, or is it the consumer's doctor?
It's interesting. You would think that that would be the beginning and the end of the prescription being filled. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, after the doctor writes the prescription, it needs to be approved by the insurance company. Mm-hmm. And many times the insurance company will say, no, we're not going to cover that. Or you need to fail on multiple different products before we'll cover that product. And it's a very frustrating process for physicians because they basically made their clinical assessment, they know what they want to prescribe, but then it doesn't get filled. The other consumer experience is they get the prescription, they go to the pharmacy, and they're shocked by the price at the pharmacy because for various reasons, it's way more expensive than they were expecting. And so most prescriptions are abandoned. So the physicians are very happy with our process because there's clarity and certainty in getting the prescription filled. And that's what we've been marketing to the prescribers is to say, if you write it, it will get filled. And they want the patient to take the medication. There's a reason for them prescribing it. So we've actually been providing, adherence reports and feedback to them about how the prescription is actually being filled for their customer. Mm-hmm. We want to provide that clarity in pricing. We don't want any shock when the person goes to the pharmacy. The ironic thing is we are as profitable going directly to consumers as we are at a lower price as we are with a much higher price going through the insurers. Mm-hmm. Because it's really the system in the US that the insurance plans and the consumers are actually supporting the very high drug price. We will make the same profit by going around.
So maybe I can add to that. Good explanation, Paul, to address your question. Number one, just finishing off on the insurance versus cash. So we wanted to sell Zypitamag for $90 a month. The insurer says, we will not cover you. We want you to sell it for $300 a month. Why would they say that? Because they get 50%. 50% of 300 is a lot more than 50% of 90. So unless we cranked up the price, and this is the case for many, many pharmaceuticals, the PBMs and the insurers make the money and they hold up the manufacturers hostage by this formula. What we've done is short-circuited that and go directly to the consumer and say, you don't need to go have that fight. We'll provide it at a lower cost. We're now providing Zypitamag at $30 a month and making money. And if any of you have looked at Mark Cuban Cost Pharmacy, he's been looking at this and now is trying to pretty much do what we're doing, but we're further ahead. So he's saying the insurers and the PBMs have been gouging the US market. And it's about time that the patients, the consumer, has a break and gets transparency. And as Neil was saying, we're fully transparent. We buy the generic pharmaceuticals from what's called mutual. It's a co-op. It's the lowest price where the buyers are part of the co-op system. So we have the most cost-efficient way of buying it, and we pass it on directly without the huge markups and the PBM's markup, additional markup. Secondly, a question about whether we market to the physician or the consumer, the patient. If you're ever in the US, you can see that you'll notice about half the commercials, I'm exaggerating a bit, but many of the commercials are advertising drugs. They're not advertising to the physician, they're advertising to the consumer, to the patient. This is the trend. And the patients, just like in Amazon and many other areas, the patients have the control. So we've jumped our business in the pharmacy to that direction where the patients are going and the business is going. And so we were quite excited about this direct to consumer. And as Neil says, we found doctors love it. There's clarity, it's easy. And if the insurance provides a better product for the patient, that's fine. But in many cases, I think in Texas, something like 17% of the population is either uninsured or underinsured. Mm-hmm. That's still a pretty big market for us.
Mm-hmm. I'm fascinated about the pharmacy side of the business, but what other challenges are you guys facing? What's keeping you from being able to roll this out much quicker?
I don't know. I think access to the patients and to the customer. As you know, TV ads are expensive. Mm-hmm. Maybe if we wanted to spend 20 million, 30 million in advertising, we might accelerate it. Or if you have the high profile a name like Mark Cuban, that helps. We're unfortunately or fortunately, Neil and I aren't that well known. And so we're working at it, and we're working with some marketing assistants and consultants to try and access it with a reasonable budget that we can afford.
Speaking a little bit about budget, what do your finances look like? How much money do you expect to spend to build this out?
I don't know the dollars we're spending, but it's in a few $1 million. We have no debt, we've got $3 million of cash, and we are generating some profit right now. So basically we're using the profit that we're generating, the net income, to roll this out.
And what sort of milestones do you expect to meet in 2022 on the pharmacy side? Is there any other sort of inflective events that you're anticipating?
We are continuing to look for partnerships. One of the ways, the cheapest way to access a broader audience is to partner with groups that have the audience. That's the RX Spark. We're in discussions with a couple of other groups where we can access the millions of customers through our relationships. And in our own research last summer, we explored how did Amazon get its first 1 million customers? How did it get its first 10 million customers? And they did a lot of partnering when they started.
Makes sense. Makes sense. I want to remind everybody that's listening, if you've got some questions you'd like me to ask the management team here, feel free to use the chat function and I'll do my best to ask the question. I'm going to go back to AgriStat. I saw a press release that, I mean, are you doing a clinical trial? I saw somewhere a note about a clinical trial for AgriStat.
There's a trial that we've just announced called SAVI.
Mm-hmm.
The practice of interventional cardiology had changed, where the procedure of doing a angioplasty or PCI, percutaneous intervention, is very quick. And these glycoprotein antiplatelet compounds were originally infused over a day or even days. But with the procedure only taking 30 minutes or an hour or two, we did a trial showing that AgriStat is as effective in a short infusion. Rather than infusing over 24 hours, you can infuse it in 1 or 2 hours, which is closer to the practice of medicine. So the reason for doing the trial is to show the physicians that they can use a short infusion. And we did show that in the trial.
Okay, so the results are out then.
They've been submitted for publication.
Okay, perfect. So we talked a little bit about the challenges you're facing on the pharmacy side. I mean, can you talk to any of the other challenges you might be facing in some of the other parts of the business?
I don't know if you want to, Neil, or I can certainly say that finding 10 patients in the world when there were only 20 was a challenge.
I would say so. Needle in a haystack. Yeah. Neil, any other challenges you're facing?
Yeah, I was just going to add to the e-commerce side. I think just building the best possible customer experience is where we're putting a lot of effort right now. Because I think we're ahead of the curve in terms of other e-commerce pharmacies, but there is competition. I know notably Amazon has moved into the space as well, but even they, and we can talk about that, but they're actually pretty restricted in the type of model that they have. Whereas I would say that we're actually quite a bit more flexible. But I think the price is one factor, and then customer experience and the purchasing experience is another. But I think that we really want to find ways to stand out in terms of customer service to bring people back to the pharmacy. But it really is just the marketing spend to bring attention to the site is where we need to focus. And just finding the right customers for us, because the interest in home delivery for medications is huge. When we've done focus groups, they really like that idea, and no one has really taken over that space yet. And in terms of us being a manufacturer that has an e-commerce platform, that's unheard of. Like no one is doing that. So that's pretty exciting for us, as well as to think about Zypitamag, but also just kind of future products that we could offer.
And do you announce sort of how many customers you have? Is there any kind of metrics around how big your pharmacy is right now?
Yeah, we have talked about it, because it was, as Dr. Friesen said, we bought a pharmacy that had an existing customer base, which was a real kind of appeal of that business. We've just launched the e-commerce site, but it's over 100,000 customers that we've had through the business. I was just going to add to the development side. Development is always challenging. I think that we kind of adapt as we kind of take each step progressively. But that's kind of the business that we're in, is to make that happen.
And I can imagine it's sort of a bit of a chicken and egg type of approach too. How do you, like, you're adding new products, you're adding new drugs to the list of products available for sale. How do you go about and do that?
Yeah, I think I can add a little bit to this, and then Dr. Friesen can complement. I think in terms of branded products through the e-commerce platform, as I said, there's actually a lot of medications that have good clinical advantages that for various reasons never took off. And so they're out there that companies are saying, basically, we tried to market this, it didn't work. And I would say 9 times out of 10, it's because they couldn't get any insurance coverage for the product. And then basically the consumers just couldn't get it, and then the prescribers just stopped prescribing it. So there are other kind of gems out there that we would like to look at acquiring to replicate what we're seeing with Zypitamag.
Yeah, so it clearly, it sounds like this really turns into a significant marketing effort. What kind of experience do you have on the marketing side? How do we, as investors, look at your sort of marketing team and the skill set that you guys have?
Oh, that's a good question. And in a lot of and debate, we could. What we've done is try to learn as much as we can from others, which I've learned in business is the way. We have just recently used a consultant for our review of our marketing, but our own internal team has learned a lot. And by learning a lot and doing and experimenting, I think we can actually be more innovative. We have used, let's say, for our website, a very experienced group. Although we just spent some time with today is in Spain. So we don't have, let's say, the marketing guru from Amazon on board, but we've learned as much as we can from others, and we have sort of targeted certain consultants to provide us either guidance or review our approach. I don't know what else, Neil, you can say.
Yeah, those are good points, and I would say that we're trying to experiment as much as we can so that we can cast the net wide and do it in cost-effective ways, so that we're not pouring a lot of money into effort that doesn't pay off. I would say the nice thing about marketing in 2022 is you get a lot of good data to help you make decisions. Just through different social media platforms, they can tell you so much about who your customers are, their purchasing experience, that it's just a matter, and they're there to support you through that process. So the information is there. It's just a matter of using it wisely, and thinking about where we stand in the competitive space to make sure that we stand out to consumers. The segue from Agristat, the Agristat experience was, we have a very solid understanding of how to market to physicians. We know how to reach them and what the messaging should be to them. And now the consumer side is where we're doing more learning, because most manufacturers, they market to consumers, but our process is just slightly different from the typical process. So that's where we're kind of doing that learning, is how do we effectively market our process and system to consumers so they understand it.
Maybe I'll just tell a short story about how being innovative and not sort of taking the known experience. When we acquired AgriStat, I hired a VP of marketing from one of the bigger firms, and he said we should go to a contract sales organization, CSO, and I wasn't certain about it. And so we hired one of the best CSOs in the US, Inventive. And we were in the year, we got very little traction. Sales people didn't really know our product. They weren't entirely committed, so we terminated that. Then we hired the top 20 salespeople that had marketed Integraland. Salespeople working out of their homes, so we actually ended up with 25. Again, very, very tough. Plan C, we hired a really good salesperson in Winnipeg, a good scientist that knew the product better than others. And we flew from Winnipeg to all the various hospitals. And Neil was part of that team, Ruben and others. And they grew that team working out of Winnipeg with solid sales, never lie, never exaggerate, provide service, and be there when they ask questions, and ask the questions honestly and directly in a positive way. We grew it from 2% to 65% of the market. We innovated. And if you think about Zypitamag and what we're doing, we're innovating. We tried this, we tried that, and we're really getting into a sweet spot now where we are, where the market, we are getting close to what the market wants.
I like it when I hear that you're just going to find an answer one way or another, and you just keep trying until you do it. It's refreshing. There's never just one way of getting something done. I'll go back to the question about products again for the pharmacy, but can you give us a sense, how many products are you selling right now? What, if I were to go to the store, so to speak, how many products am I seeing on the shelf?
Yeah. In terms of the products and the strengths, there's more than 1,500. We've really tried to focus, though, on what is kind of the most popular medications. We know that from the existing business, what most people are interested in buy. So we basically want to offer everything that people are interested in. We don't want to limit it. And through the wholesale channels, we have access to more than 6,000 medications and doses. So we're just kind of staying away from compounded medications that involves a layer of complexity that we don't want to get into. But basically, we actually know from market data what most people are looking for. We tend to focus more on chronic medications and health conditions, and we're trying to get people to move towards not just 90-day fills, but 180 and 360 fills. Because a lot of times physicians really like that, and that sets us apart. But really, we want to be able to fill any medication that someone's looking for.
That makes sense. The 2022, you say you've got about 100,000 customers. What would you view the year being? What sort of where's your success line in terms of, if I'm looking at number of customers? What do you think you can grow it this year with a little bit of luck?
Neil's not going to answer the question. I got to say honestly, our board asked that, and we said we don't know. We could say what I've said is we have 100,000. Next target is 1 million. Then once you hit 1 million, what's 10 million? And that's really the way we approach it. We should be able to, if we get lucky, and it takes luck and determination and perseverance, get past the millions. Our Spark alone provides us more than 1 million customers right now.
Okay. So do you keep metrics in terms of what your average sort of customer purchases on a yearly basis? I imagine that's something that's an important data point.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what number is that? Can you disclose kind of what number you see on a regular basis?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I know we keep the number, but I don't know it.
Surprisingly, it is a few $100s. It depends on obviously how many medications they're taking, what types of medications. To give you a little bit of context as to the market size, we really are focusing mostly on those who pay cash, which might be maybe not familiar to everyone, but in the US, either you're using your insurance to buy a medication, or you can pay what's called cash, so you're not using your insurance. And there's a very large proportion of Americans who don't have any insurance. That's our market. And then there's another very large proportion of people who are what's called underinsured or self-employed. And they have very, very high copays for their medications. Mm-hmm. And then there are those who are Medicare or Medicaid. Medicare is a little bit of our business model because they have very good copay coverage, but they can run into what's called the donut hole, where their coverage actually runs out at the end of the year. Mm-hmm. For people who have very, very good coverage and no copay, those aren't our customers. Mm-hmm. So we're focused on those who are looking to pay what's called cash, not use their insurance to pay for the medications. And so we're convincing them that they don't need to use their insurance, that we're actually less than their insurance. And so that's kind of the appeal there. In terms of age range, it's really everyone. It's really across the spectrum as to who that appeals to. And the gauge of how much interest there is in that is through like something like GoodRx. And what they do is they would issue a coupon for you to go to your local pharmacy, cash only, no insurance.
Right.
And that's hugely popular, but that's limited. That's not home delivery, right? And it's based on variable pricing depending where you are in the country, mm-hmm. and you have to go to the pharmacy, and there's all kinds of issues with that. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to find that solution for those people who are looking to pay cash but have a better customer kind of experience.
Yeah, and you must have a sort of a general sense of what percentage of the the U.S. population falls into those categories. The sort of the underinsured, non-insured, and Medicare, Medicaid. What kind of percentage are we talking about? Is it? Yeah.
Interestingly, the highest proportion of uninsured is in Houston, Texas, and it's 28%. They have no insurance.
Wow.
You could probably double that for underinsured, or maybe even go beyond 50%. So it really depends on the state and the city, obviously. But I would say it's more than half of Americans.
Wow. Okay. Gotcha. Cool. So going forward, what do you think are the key metrics or key catalysts do you think investors should watch for sort of over the course of the next year to see that you guys are on your path?
I would say the growth in the e-commerce business and sales of Zypitamag. There may be other events which we can't really predict, and that is our negotiation with partners that might accelerate the growth.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. Okay, perfect. And then sort of last question is really more allowing you guys to have a statement, but is there a key message or a key takeaway you want to make sure everybody walks away with today about the company?
I think that we're very much focused on the business, and as I highlight, we want to maintain profitability and integrity. I said our sales team over and over again, we never exaggerate, never lie. We have a tremendous team dedicated to the mission of providing a service. As Neil has said, we think what differentiates us will be our service, and has in the past, our service and our orientation to. And if you look at our history, our commitment to shareholders, one thing I didn't share today is that in the process of looking for additional drugs, we bought a company called Apicor. Mm-hmm. And we bought it for $50 million and sold it for $110 million. And we returned half that money to the shareholders. And that's our commitment to shareholders. Now, we've struggled. Specialty pharma has not been a popular place to be. And we did invest in a couple of other products which didn't work out, the Reds, but we're now very heavily focused on growing these with retaining profitability and looking after our shareholders.
Fantastic. Now, if somebody wants more information, remind everybody what your website address is.
Medicure.com.
Easy, medicure.com. Well, this has been great. Okay, well, I appreciate the updates. This has gotten us right up to speed here. We've been speaking with Chairman and CEO Dr. Albert Friesen and President and COO Neil Owen. I want to thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today, and certainly look forward to catching up to you guys in the near future.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.